So, as far as openings go, I'm not sure what else what other options he has if he's tempted to go now. And I've kind of maintained all along, I don't see him coaching Colorado without his kids. And so this might be just that. I'm not saying it's a great football hire or a great situation for him, but it might be the only one available that could make, basically do what he wants them to do.
Let's start here. Let's start with the Deion news, man. So, of course, news broke out a couple of days ago. Jerry Jones and Deion have talked, basically had a phone interview, if you will, or in person, I'm sorry, and talked about the position of the Dallas Cowboys head coach. Now, we talked about on the show, what was that, last week or week before, because Deion went on a podcast and was basically saying how the only he will coach in the NFL is able to coach his sons. If he's able to coach his sons, he'll coach in the NFL. And then the next week rolls around, and Jerry Jones is talking to Deion about coaching the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
well, they finally got rid of McCarthy.
Yeah.
And that should have happened last year.
Yeah.
So they finally pulled the plug on that, and that kind of like put this.
He didn't want to though. They couldn't come to terms on the years. McCarthy wanted a full, like, if you will, a max, years to coach the Cowboys, and Jerry only wanted to give him a 2 to 3 year deal. You know what I'm saying? So they couldn't come to terms on that, and that's why the separation happened.
What's funny too is we talked last week about Jerry's appearance on Landman.
Yeah.
And his whole little speech was centered around setting life up so you work with your kids. Now, a week later, he's looking for a new football coach with a guy who wants nothing more than to coach his kids. Like, it kind of does have like a circular feel to it.
Now, people have talked ad nauseum about, it's not realistic for Deion to get this job and for them to get Shedeur. Okay? Because, of course, they're so far down in the draft. And then trading Dak is not really, because they, the biggest problem is they gave Dak the contract in the middle of the year, right? So they have all of this dead money if they were to trade him. And it's not like the NBA. And I always have to remind myself of that. Because, if Milwaukee Bucks wants to trade Giannis or does trade Giannis, then the team that trades for him is going to pick up that contract. That's not the way it works in the NFL. Because the Cowboys just gave, Dak Prescott, made him the highest paid quarterback in the league in the middle of this year or the beginning of the year, okay, they are responsible. They'll be responsible for so much money on their cap for the next 2 years if they trade him in this offseason. Which is awful, but that's just the way things are set up now. Now, that doesn't make it impossible. That just makes it unlikely. We just saw the Denver Broncos do something very similar to that, and because they drafted a rookie quarterback, they were able to sort of to eat that. They're still eating that dead money, still paying Russ.
Right. And so in context, if they had tried the same maneuver with Russ and then went into like the open QB market and signed a veteran, that would have been impossible or damn near because of that. But by moving on from that contract, not fully, still paying, by going with a rookie quarterback, it was able to work. Mm-hmm. And so the Cowboys, if the plan is Shedeur, could do a similar plan, execute a similar plan.
Could, but Jerry would have to be willing to eat a ton of money. I just don't think, and outside of the Shedeur thing, it's just not a good opportunity for Deion. I would love to see him in the NFL if that's the next plan for him, but the Cowboys is just a dumpster fire, man. I had to listen to people on TV today talking about, and this is outside of Shedeur, talking about, what a great opportunity. They have a really good quarterback and a number one receiver and a number one player on defense. And I'm like, what have y'all been watching? Well, I mean, have y'all been watching what I've been watching? We've been talking for the past 5 or 6 years how this quarterback, and he's the highest paid quarterback in the league, and he's not the answer. He wasn't the answer at the 16th highest paid quarterback in the league, and you have him for the next 4 or 5 years. Okay, the offensive line now is garbage. When 5 years ago they had the best offensive line in the league, now that's a question mark. Their defensive line is a question mark. You know what I mean? It's not they don't have any depth. They don't have anything behind the number one receiver. They don't have a running game. It's just so many holes, to fill. And it's not like they have a ton of cap space. They do not, because they paid their number one quarterback and their number one receiver, and their number one defensive player is up for a contract this offseason. So this is not a great situation for Deion outside of Shedeur.
I mean, I don't know what other situation works for him, because Jerry's not gonna he's not gonna hire a no-name guy. It's just not his style. He wants to hire some sort of name that's gonna create buzz about the Cowboys, and Deion fits that. Now, obviously, I think if they are going with Deion, it signals they are going to go with Shedeur and eat whatever they have to eat on Dak. So you're not necessarily going to be stuck with that quarterback and his subpar play. The Raiders have apparently expressed they have no interest whatsoever in Deion. And then I don't know what other team is kind of in that mix. Jacksonville hasn't hired a coach yet. But my understanding is they're not necessarily looking at Deion. They're looking at Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn and some of the guys that are still involved in the playoffs. So, as far as openings go, I'm not sure what else what other options he has if he's tempted to go now. And I've kind of maintained all along, I don't see him coaching Colorado without his kids. And so this might be just that. I'm not saying it's a great football hire or a great situation for him, but it might be the only one available that could make, basically do what he wants them to do.
Yeah. Now the Raiders thing, I don't know anything about that. I thought that with the Brady thing there, that's still an option. But hey, they haven't spoke or interviewed him yet, so that you may have something on that.
Well, they did make a statement that they had zero interest in Deion.
Oh wow.
So taking that as its word, or is that some sort of deceptionary play? I don't know.
Hey, like I said, until they speak or interview him, that holds weight. Yeah. Now on the Cowboys side, they're interviewing Robert Saleh. Okay. They're going to interview Robert Saleh. That is in the works. And also, they have shown interest in Jason Witten. Okay.
What's Jason Witten doing?
That I don't know.
I don't. I mean, I asked that because I don't know if he was an assistant somewhere or he's been coaching at some level recently.
Right here, they're just talking about. They say while his coaching experience is limited to leading a private high school team to a state championship. Okay.
Deion did that.
His leadership qualities and with the organization makes him a compelling, albeit unconventional option. Okay. So he coached a private high school to a state championship. That's more than the offensive lineman had for the coach. That was the coach, head coach.
Oh yeah.
He hadn't coached anything. So I mean that's a step up from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so you have that. Deion's not going to the Cowboys.
And those are not great names, though.
What about Robert Saleh?
No, I think he's trash.
He's a defensive coach.
He's leaning towards going to the 49ers as a DC.
Yeah, because he's a defensive coach.
That's where he had success was in that job. So he's leaning that way. I don't think he's an attractive head coach hire. I mean, he pretty much fell on his face and presided over a shit show with the Jets. And then Jason Witten's, just kind of an odd flyer on a guy that is, a Cowboy great, essentially.
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be a ton of great options because, like I said, I think coaches of quality can look at that landscape and say, I think the Cowboys are one of the worst openings there are.
And that's what Troy Aikman recently said.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not a coveted job. I mean, they may think they are, but they're not. And I think that list and even the mention of Deion, from the Cowboys' perspective, I mean, it might work out. I mean, Deion has essentially won everywhere he's been, so we can't take that away from him yet. But in basically a market that doesn't have a lot of established, that the best established candidates as far as like the Ben Johnsons, Aaron Glenn, the guys that are top assistants right now, they're not looking for that Cowboy job.
No.
So
no way.
I really feel I'm not saying it's not going to happen, because I think Jerry Jones is kind of up against it with this search.
Oh yeah, so you're saying he may throw a ton of money at Deion.
I don't necessarily think it would be a ton of money at Deion. I don't think it's like he needs to be a top 5 paid head coach. I think giving him the control to do what he wants to do, and obviously Shador being involved in that's those two things are higher than money in the hierarchy of this.
I think you can always give Shiloh the Bronny James spot on the team.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't be surprised at all. You know? I mean, like, in a lot of ways, Shiloh's the easiest piece of this.
Oh, he's the easiest piece.
You can pick him up in the late rounds or undrafted free agent.
The Shador piece is the
piece.
Is
the one. But that's where you've got to be.
That's where you got to be.
At a certain
Now,